Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will stand and be led in prayer by Ron Tier Chadwell, Sikh Foundation of Virginia, Fairfax Station, Virginia. The senators will remain standing and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूर्त आजूनी सैवं गुर प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच. There is one God, the eternal, all-pervading and everlasting, fearless, without enmity, never incarnated, present throughout creation, self-existent, and the enlightener. Meditate on the name of the Lord God, who was true in the beginning, true in the primeval age, true now, and true always. O dear Almighty God, guide us to realize the truth about our existence, our real self, the God within us, the ultimate reality, so that we may attain an eternal state of bliss. God, please show us the light so that we may believe in the universal brotherhood, truthful living, and honest hard work. Give us strength to build our character so that we may bear no malice towards anyone and share our blessings with others. Almighty God, open up our hearts and our minds so that we always discern your will for this commonwealth and this great nation. Please grant us wisdom and courage and inspire us with vision so that Americans of all faith and color continue to be a force of hope and freedom throughout the world. Dear God, may your grace and presence be with the members of the Senate as they fulfill their duties of the office and serve you by serving the people of Virginia and this great nation. Set these elected representatives free to speak the truth, honed by study and prayer, to discern whatever is right and to be distinguished for their integrity. May their decisions promote peace, love, compassion, harmony, and universal brotherhood and preserve your beautiful creation on this earth. O God, bring us into the fellowship of men and women in whose company we may always remember thy name. Dear God, bless everyone, and may everyone prosper under your light. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Our pure soul belongs to you, and may you forever be glorious. Thank you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will call the roll. All those present will please record their vote aye. Clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Monday, February 18th, 2019.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of waiving the reading of the journal will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 32, noes 8.
Ayes 32, noes 8. The reading of the journal is waived. Clerk will report any communication from the House of Delegates. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Good morning, Mr. President. How are you today, sir?
Good morning, Senator. Doing well. I hope you are.
I am. Just peachy. I respectfully move that we waive the reading of any communications from the House of Delegates, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Question is, shall the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 2.
Ayes 36, noes 2. The reading of the communication from the House of Delegates is waived. Clerk will report any communication from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now comes a time in the morning hour where we have the privilege and honor of welcoming our special and distinguished guests with us here in the Senate gallery. I will give my daily reminder that the way this will proceed is that a senator will stand up, recognize an individual or group. I will then offer the warm welcome of the Senate, and at the very end, we will all clap together. I'd like to begin by calling on the senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Senator.
I rise for purposes of an introduction.
Thanks, Senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, you will note that I have had some wonderful young people who have shadowed me during this legislative session. And this morning, I really have an extraordinary young man. He is here. He is a fifth grader. He traveled down this morning with his dad, who is a very, very good friend of mine. His name is Noah Tristan Cosby. He is 11 years old. He is a gifted A student, and he is a native of Fauquier County. He is also an advocate for something quite interesting. He is encouraging expanded moped legislation to enable younger, responsible riders. So note that, because we may be getting that one day. He's also an aspiring actor, and he enjoys sports and dirt bikes. He has a black belt in Taekwondo, and he currently practices Muay Thai martial arts. He plays soccer and basketball. He's on his school's A honor roll, and he's performed on stage with the Lasley Center in the Nutcracker. I happen to have gone to the Nutcracker. I didn't know that was him on there. So anyway, Mr. President, I would ask that you please extend to him the very, very warm welcome of the Senate. And he's here for a very interesting day, and I hope he enjoys our time here on the Senate floor. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank the Senator. Would our friend Noah Tristan Cosby please rise in the gallery with your father if you are able? Noah, thank you so much for joining us here today in the Senate. I know that Senator Vogel from Fauquier is deeply proud of you and all that you've accomplished. I know your parents and your family are also tremendously proud of you. What an impressive record you have put together in your 11 years, academic, arts, athletics, and it's something that's going to carry you forward, and we expect really great things out of you in your life. So we're all rooting for you. We go with our praises, and I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our young leader, Noah Tristan Cosby. Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, in the gallery now is Randhir Shotwal, who gave the invocation today. He's with the Sikh Foundation of Virginia at their Gurdwara, or temple, which is located on Route 123 in the Burke Lake area, right across from the entrance from Burke Lake. Which interestingly, is an area right around Burke Lake. There are numerous different religious organizations and faiths. It's really an interfaith area that we have in that part of Northern Virginia. This is the Sikh Foundation of Virginia is the oldest Sikh temple in the Commonwealth. It's been there over 40 years, and it has grown rapidly over the years in Northern Virginia, and sometimes has over 1,000 families attending some of their major religious celebrations. the Sikh Foundation is very active in the local community, providing services to people who have needs, and is extraordinarily supportive of the interfaith efforts to try to bring harmony among people from different religions in the Northern Virginia and Greater Washington areas. And they've been tremendous leaders in our communities, certainly people that are helpful to people throughout the Commonwealth and in Northern Virginia. And he has with him several other people from the temple, and I'd hope it'd be your pleasure to give him the warm welcome to the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friend Rantir Chadwal and your guests please rise in the gallery if you are able? Rantir, thank you so much for that very moving and beautiful prayer. I think you indicated this was the first time that we've had the pleasure of having you deliver the prayer in the Senate, hopefully not the last, and we're grateful for your moral leadership. We're also grateful to the Sikh Foundation for the tremendous work that you do, not just in Northern Virginia, but all throughout the Commonwealth, to bring us together, to focus on interfaith activities and public service to community, to help us rise. And so we are grateful to every single one of you. We look forward to seeing you here in the Senate and back up in Northern Virginia. And I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our distinguished guests. The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator Sturtevant.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Senator.
I rise for an introduction.
Thanks, Senator. You have the floor.
I do not have the green sheet yet, and so you may not either. But I see in the gallery are two students from Powhatan High School who are shadowing in my office today. Their names are Hannah Hald and Ashley Trevelyan. They are seniors at Powhatan High School. They are in the Advanced College Academy, which means that they are earning their associate's degree, which they will receive when they graduate from high school this June. They told me where they're going to be going to college about 30 minutes ago, and I have a 50% chance of getting this right. And they'll shake their head yes or no if I'm right. But Hannah is going to the University of Richmond next year, and Ashley is going to Virginia Tech next year. And I got that right. And Mr. President, I'd ask that we offer Hannah and Ashley the warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Would our friends Hannah Hald and Ashley Trevelyan please rise in the gallery if you're able? Hannah and Ashley, thank you all so much for joining us here today, taking a day out of your studies to be with us and to learn more about the legislative process. It really is important to have young leaders like you be engaged in our democracy in this way, and very proud of the records that you have amassed, and congratulations to you both. Two phenomenal schools, University of Richmond and Virginia Tech, and I know they are looking forward to having you both on campus and to all the wonderful things you'll do and the leaders that you'll continue to grow to be. So we echo the generous and eloquent words of the senior senator from Richmond City, Senator Sturtevant. We wish you guys nothing but the best in your futures, and I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our two leaders, Hannah and Ashley. Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
Thank the Senator. You have the floor.
Right in the nick of time, the green sheet landed on my desk. I would like to make everyone aware in the gallery today we have a group from the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center that does a phenomenal job for our region, helping to educate the people from Southwest Virginia. In the gallery today is the president, David Matlock. Accompanied with him is Hannah Heidela, Ricky Riley, Pat Ball, Deborah Sproles, Teresa Burris, and Courtney Stringer. I would like for the body to make them welcome here today to the Capitol. Thank you.
Thank the Senator. Would our leaders from the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center in the gallery please rise if you are able? Thank you all so much for joining us here today in the Senate. It is an honor to have you. We are deeply grateful for your leadership in providing educational and economic mobility and opportunity for so many people in Southwest Virginia and throughout the Commonwealth. It's really essential that people have that kind of opportunity to have a chance to achieve the American dream. And so, President Matlock, thank you so much, again, for your great leadership. Thank you to your wonderful team for all that you do. We echo the eloquent and the generous words of the Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico, and I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders and friends from the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center. Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
Rise for purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, today in the gallery we've got Paul Ebert and his son, Pete Ebert. And I will tell you that we passed a resolution for Paul Ebert, I guess it was last week, and honoring him for 50 years of service. But in the world of Commonwealth's attorneys, Paul Ebert is a giant. He has served Prince William County for 50 years, which is an incredible amount of time, particularly to be a Commonwealth's attorney. He or his office has presided over some of the most infamous cases, Lorena Bobbitt, the D.C. sniper, just to name a few. They have successfully prosecuted more capital cases than any other Commonwealth's attorney in the state, and I believe he probably is the longest Commonwealth's attorney in the state. He personifies a true commitment to public service, and with what he has done for the citizens of Prince William County and actually the whole region, it's just been incredible, and it would be a much different place had he not chosen to do what he did for so many years. And for that, Mr. President, his commitment to public service is really unsurpassed in my mind. And so he's here today. We gave him a resolution commending him for his 50 years of service. I did that before I knew he was going to retire, but he just announced that he was going to retire. I don't think he could have made that record any better. But we are truly honored to have Paul Ebert here today, and his son Pete, who I enjoyed getting to talk to and meet. And Mr. President, I would just ask, there may be others who would like to say a word as well, but I'd ask at the appropriate time you give him the warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the Senator. Senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to add to that introduction, it is just great to have Paul Ebert with us today. As he likes to joke, he, when joined in 1968, he joined public service. I think his joke is that, when he joined, Moby Dick was a minnow. And so he has done a tremendous service to Prince William County. He's been a fantastic friend to many of us. The cookmaster at John Jenkins' annual crab feast for years and years and years, and we will certainly miss John, but he's been a great friend and public servant. And please add to the welcome for Paul Ebert this morning. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard? Senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just comment very briefly. Paul, you've done an incredible job. One of the things that is so nice is when there's a degree of consistency and predictability, and you have certainly provided that over many years, and the level of the prosecutions that have been carried out has just been extraordinary. I mean, things of great national significance. And so I just thank you on behalf of all of the people that I represent. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard? A Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, it's my pleasure to join my colleagues here in recognizing Paul Ebert for what he's done. When he first got elected as a Commonwealth's attorney, became Commonwealth's attorney in Prince William County back in the 1960s, there was no city of Manassas. There was no city of Manassas Park, and there were less than 100,000 people in Prince William County. It's a population of well over 500,000 people, an extraordinarily diverse population. He's seen it, but he's also been part of what has helped Prince William develop in the way it has and become a leader within the Northern Virginia community. He's handled so many different types of cases and had so many different people that he's worked with that whenever we're interviewing potential candidates for judges, it seems as one way or another they've all had some significant contact with him, either serving in his office, in the Commonwealth's Attorney's office, or being on the opposite side of people from the Commonwealth's attorneys representing people, and they've all talked about how he has helped prepare them for their careers, both as lawyers and then potentially in many instances moving on to judges. So he's really helped shape things in a very positive manner in the Prince William area over the years, and it's certainly our pleasure to be able to recognize him today.
Thank the Senator. Seeing no one else, would Paul and Pete Ebert please rise in the gallery if you're able? Paul, thank you so much for your tremendous career of service to others in Prince William County, really to the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. You have been a stellar example for so many of us to follow in public life, both those of us who are lawyers and former prosecutors and defense attorneys, but those who also want to go out and serve and make our communities better. It's something that you have done now for more than 50 years, but certainly in this role for 50 years, and that's a bright light for so many of us to follow. You heard the eloquent praise and words. We don't normally have multiple senators doing one introduction, but you have earned that and more. Pete, thank you for your family service. We know that this is work that requires a commitment from the entire family, and so we're grateful to you and for you lending your great father to us to make us better. So you have helped us get to a place where Prince William County is safer. We have a system of integrity and rule of law and due process, and we look forward to getting to the truth on so many matters using our great court system, and you have allowed us to be that example for so many people around the nation and ultimately to the world. So, Paul, God bless you. We love you, and I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our great leader, Paul Ebert. Do any other senators wish to be recognized for purposes of an introduction? Is there any other business to come in the morning hour? Seeing none, the clerk will call the calendar.
Calendar for Tuesday, February 19th, 2019. Turn to page 6. Unfinished business, House. House Bill 1625. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Mr. President, I would move we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 1659. The House has rejected the Senate amendment.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would insist and request a committee of conference on this bill.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its amendments and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 1817. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2042. The House has rejected the Senate amendment.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our amendment and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its amendment and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2044. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2056. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2234. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate insist on its amendments and request a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its amendments and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its amendments and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2303. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2550. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2576. The House has rejected the Senate amendment.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our amendments and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its amendment and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2678. The House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its substitute and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 2747. The House has rejected the Senate amendments.
Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I move that we insist on our amendments and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist on its amendments and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate insists on its amendments and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 1733, the House has acceded to the request for committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Suderline, Barker, and Newman. House Bill 1818, the House has acceded to the request for committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chair of Transportation, Senator Carrico, or Senators Suderline, Black, and Mason. House Bill 2059, the House has acceded to a request for committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of the Courts of Justice, Senator Obenshain, or Senators McDougall, Dance, and Peake. House Bill 2060, the House has acceded to a request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the co-chairs of Finance, Senators Norman and Hanger, are Senators Lucas, Stewart, and Vogel. House Bill 2750, the House has acceded to a request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Chase, Lucas, and Donovan. Turning to page 15, Senate Bill 1025 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move the substitute.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. The substitute is almost exactly like a bill that we already passed out. It's already passed the committee and the House floor, and it's exactly the same way we want it. So I move that we approve the substitute.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1094 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House substitute. What the House substitute does is it draws the authority for approval of child home daycare permits to a zoning regulation or a zoning ordinance, if you will, and ensures that the zoning administrator may make the decision if all local zoning ordinances are reviewed and applied. So it will streamline the process by which our family day homes can actually achieve a permit. And with that, again, I renew my motion that we concur with the House substitute.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1128 has passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Hampton, Senator Lott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we concur with the House amendment. It merely adds the word cemetery, and this bill adds African American cemeteries in the city of Hampton.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 1159 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I move that we accept the House substitute, concur with the House substitute. What this is, we had a bit of an internal inconsistency because we said that we wanted age-appropriate education on this, and at the same time, we said that it should be in elementary, middle, and high school. And so there was just an inconsistency that we caught that over on the House side. It was a good change, and so I recommend that we concur with the House substitute.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1425 has passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that with the recommendation that we reject the amendment, I ask that we concur with the House amendment.
Thanks, Senator. Do you want to speak to that, Senator? No, I don't think your mic's on.
There we go.
Okay.
I got a little IT assistance here. That was helpful. Mr. President, they changed this bill so that localities had the ability to continue in cases to tax. They allowed it only to be regionally local localities, and we want to make sure that the food trucks have the opportunity to pay a licensing tax once. They'll always pay their B-poll and their food tax, but not to have unnecessary fees that are associated with their business.
Thank the senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 0, noes 40.
Ayes 0, noes 40. The Senate does not concur with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 1461 has passed the House with a substitute.
The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accept the House substitute. And speaking to that,
Senator has the floor.
The House substitute adopted some recommendations worked out between SHEV and the Office of the Attorney General to ensure that this bill was narrowly tailored to address the problem it was intended to address and didn't have unintended consequences.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1469 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr.
Senator.
President.
Good morning.
So I move that the Senate concur with and accept the House substitute. And speaking to that matter,
Senator has the floor.
So the substitute creates an exemption under the Freedom of Information Act for information that might be provided to investigators investigating a timber theft, when that information would be some type of commercial information dealing with pricing or some type of financial information that would otherwise should not be divulged to the public.
Thank the senator. Question is, shall the
Mr. President?
I'm sorry, Senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
I will yield.
Senator yields. You have the
Mr.
floor.
Chairman, ask the gentleman, is this now a felony offense or a misdemeanor offense as it left the Senate?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I will yield for that question. And, Mr. President, I would say that this offense left as a misdemeanor offense.
Mr. President, would the gentleman yield for another question?
I will yield.
Senator yields.
Did it come back to us as a misdemeanor offense?
Yes, it came. Yes, I would say to the gentleman from Hanover that it came back as a misdemeanor offense.
Thank the senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1481 It's passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Mr. President, I move that we concur with the House substitute.
Senator has the floor.
The substitute simply conforms the language of this bill with the House Bill 2551 that we've already passed, 40-0.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1487 is passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds.
Mr. President, I move that we reject the amendment. I'm afraid this amendment, together with amendments we made in the Senate, have created some inconsistencies in this legislation that probably require the bill to go to conference.
Thank the senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 0, noes 40.
Ayes 0, noes 40. The Senate does not concur with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 1505 is passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that we concur with the House amendment.
The Senator want to speak to that?
Could this go by just for briefly?
Without objection, Senate Bill 1505 will go by temporarily.
Senate Bill 1547 is passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the recommendation that we reject the House substitute, I move adoption. And speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has to do with music therapy, and the bill that left the Senate had a registration, not a licensure. It had been sort of ratcheted back. And on the House side, they actually made it into a study, and I would like to actually have this go to conference. So with that, I move adoption of the substitute, but make the recommendation that the body please reject that. Thank you very much.
Thank the Senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 2, noes 38.
Ayes 2, noes 38. The Senate does not concur with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1653 is passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that we accept the House amendments to Senate Bill 1653. And speaking to that motion,
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, you may remember this bill as an add-on to a bill that we passed last year that basically tries to keep opioids out of the hands of people who are not prescribed them, and those through the veterinary offices where they were harming dogs and animals, bringing them to the veterinary office so they could get opioids for the animal, and then taking the opioids themselves and not giving them to the animal. What we found is there are 2 drugs on the schedule list that would also be banned and have to go through the PMP, and those were buprenorphine and canine butorphanol. And so because they really weren't dispensed with at the CVSs and the pharmacies, that this would now be allowed to have, the veterinarian could have those 2 drugs, just those 2 drugs, at their disposal without the 7-day limitation. And in that way, because there's no way that the pharmacies can actually provide these kind of drugs to veterinarians, what we did was we added on to that, and the House did this as well. They added on to the end of that the veterinary establishment that has these 2 drugs must maintain the records for the dispensing of these 2 drugs in question, and do so monthly and make it available for inspection if so requested by VDAX or anyone else. So for those reasons, Mr. President, members of the Senate, I renew my motion that we accept the Senate bill's amendments from the House.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 1692 is passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we concur with the House substitute, and that included one technical amendment, and that will put it in the conform it to House Bill 1839, which is already passed.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
Senate Bill 1118. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Good morning, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the House's request for a committee on conference.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you. Question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All those in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health are Senators Peterson, Norman, and Newman. Senate Bill 1214, the House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that we accede to the House's request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Newman, Locke, and Carrico. Senate Bill 1253. The House insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would accede to a conference committee.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Rehabilitation and Social Services, Senator Reeves, or Senators Reeves, Mason, DeSteff. Senate Bill 1286. The House insists on its amendments and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move that we accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Rehabilitation and Social Services, Senator Reeves, or Senators Barker, Cosgrove, and Chafin. Senate Bill 1490. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 38, no 0.
Ayes 38, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Rehabilitation and Social Services, Senator Obenshain, or Senators Obenshain, McDougall, and Spruill. Senate Bill 1519. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Carrico, Cosgrove, and Barker. Senate Bill 1575. The House insists on its substitute and request a committee of conference.
Senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, of Senators Eben, Carrico, and Donovan. Senate Bill 1593. The House insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Donovan, Peake, and Howell. Senate Bill 1598. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Rehabilitation and Social Services, or Senators Donovan, Chafin, and Mason. Senate Bill 1617. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Ruff, Saslaw, and Donovan. Senate Bill 1628. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Education and Health, Senator Newman, or Senators Donovan, Norman, and Newman. Senate Bill 1651. The House insists on its substitute and request a committee of conference.
Senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howe.
Hi, I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of General Laws and Technology, Senator Ruff, or Senators Howell, Reeves, and Sturtevant. Senate Bill 1661. The House insists on its substitute and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I move that that the Senate accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank you, Senator. Question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of Rehabilitation and Social Services, Senator Reeves, or Senators Peake, Chafin, and Boysko. Senate Bill 1703. The House insists on its amendment and requests a committee of conference.
Senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the Senate accede to the House request for a committee of conference on Senate Bill 1703.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate is named by the Chairman of General Laws and Technology, Senator Ruff, or Senators Suderline, Sturtevant, and Eben. We are awaiting House action on the remaining bills in that section. Uncontested calendar
Mr. President.
Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
With my apologies to the body, having voted on the prevailing side by which we rejected the amendments of Senate Bill 1425 on page 16, may we please reconsider that vote? I thought I'd wait till we were done.
Question is, shall the vote by which the Senate did not concur with the House amendment regarding Senate Bill 1425 be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. Senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that we concur with this amendment. I had the wrong amendment in mind when I spoke earlier, and this is really just clearing up language and replacing county or city with locality. So I move that we concur with that amendment.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Turning to page 18, Senate Bill 1505.
Senator from Grayson, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that we agree to the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Do you want to speak to it?
I'll speak to it this time. This amendment simply has the head of the agency in which the individual is being named after, if it's a state employee, to submit a letter or a resolution in behalf of that designee for the bridge naming. I'd ask that we accept the amendment.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Turning to page 27. Uncontested calendar, House bills on third reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move that all the House bills on the third reading on the uncontested calendar, which would include all House bills on pages 27 through 34, including House Bill 2230 through House Bill 2783, be placed on their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments. Any senator who desires to remove a bill from the block should please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank the senator. Question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested calendar third reading, pages 27 through 34, House Bill 2230 through House Bill 2783, be placed upon their final passage in a block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill be removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. Clerk will read the number of the bills.
House Bill 2230, reported from the Committee on Commerce and Labor. House Bill 2205. The committee amendments have been adopted by the Senate. House Bill 1627, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 1671, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 1822, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 1884, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with amendment.
Just want to field this one. Senator from Spotsylvania. Senior Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the amendment.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted.
House Bill 1987, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with a substitute.
Senior Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee substitute.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 2009, reported for the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 2047, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 2108, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 2208, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with amendments.
Senior Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of the committee amendments.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are adopted.
House Bill 2258, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 2367, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with the substitute.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee substitute.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee substitute is adopted.
House Bill 2395, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendment.
Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the amendment be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2403, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 2637, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. House Bill 2743, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 2755, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with amendment.
Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the amendment be agreed to.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2756, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services. House Bill 2783, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources.
The question is, shall the House bills pass in a block? Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serville.
Can House Bill 2009 on page 30 come out of the block so I can abstain on it?
Without objection, House Bill 2009 on page 30 will be removed from the block. Question is, shall the House bills pass in a block? That is all bills except for House Bill 2009. All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bills in the block pass.
Returning to page 30, House Bill 2009.
Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Sorry, Mr. President, I was doing something else.
No worries.
And we're on 2009.
Page 30, House Bill 2009.
Mr. President, move the bill pass. And speaking to that,
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this bill essentially allowed you to put the land conservation projects before the funding, and so it would allow people to see what was out there, and it would be easier to get the money to fund those projects. With that, I move the bill pass.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2009? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2009 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0. Rule 36-1.
Ayes 39, noes 0. Rule 36-1. House Bill 2009 passes.
Regular calendar House bills on third reading. House Bill 1634, a bill relating to an additional local sales and use tax in Halifax County, appropriations of Halifax County to incorporated towns for educational purposes. Reported from the Committee on Finance with an amendment.
Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will move that the bill pass, but I'll let somebody else speak to it. I do not support this bill.
Okay. Does the senator want to move the committee amendments? Or Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move the committee amendment.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendment is adopted. Senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the motion to pass.
Senator has the floor.
This Commonwealth has various interests, various strengths, and various weaknesses. We try to address those the best we can in Virginia. When Northern Virginia and Tidewater had issues about transportation, we voted to help them. When Southwest Virginia was considering problems they had, we talked about having casinos, and we're working on that process. Halifax County has needs for education. They have limited options on where to raise money. They are not a center of commerce. So this opportunity for a tax would be on the people themselves. They do not attract sales from outside the area. They will have to pass a referendum for this to happen. I think it's only fair that they have that opportunity, and I ask you to support the bill.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to talk a little bit about the bill. I don't normally, if I can avoid it, rise to oppose legislation, but I would like to speak to the
Senator
bill.
has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I recognize, Mr. President, members of the Senate, the need that's very obvious around the Commonwealth. We have many localities, and I've had the opportunity to chair the Center for Rural Virginia, where we focus on some of those needs in rural Virginia. I've had the opportunity to chair the Fiscal Stress Commission, which we're currently working on trying to come up with ideas for how we address those needs. But I would submit to you, Mr. President, that this, even though it would help a particular single county, is poor public policy for us to do at this time. First, let's recognize that when we do this for one locality, that there are 30 or 40 other localities in similar circumstances that have needs that are unaddressed, that have fiscal stress that we are not addressing. And so you put this out there, and that appears on first sight to be a method. The other is the amendment that we entertained reduces the amount of money from 2% local sales tax to 1%, I believe is correct on that, which I would question then whether or not, even if imposed, would address the need that they have to build a new school. The other really deals with tax policy and our inability or unwillingness to address the obvious. And the obvious is that we have failed to meet the needs of our local government statewide, particularly those that do not have an economic base to sustain themselves. A lot of disparities within individual counties. If you look even at a small in population locality like Halifax, you'll find that there are disparities. There are people with lots of property. There are people with limited means. So the overall family income is in the range of about $36,000, I believe, somewhere in that range. We have a wide range, but even within Halifax, that's an average figure. You have higher and lower income people. Sales tax versus real estate. Generally, I like for us to be able to, from a public policy standpoint, address the bigger issue in terms of state support for localities and not putting a burden on real estate. But we also have to recognize there has to be local effort. And the local effort in many of our rural localities is because there's an unwillingness to increase the real estate tax levy. Halifax is 48 cents per hundred. So I would question whether or not they have the ability locally to raise some money there before they would turn to this policy. Even though there's a referendum, we here in this body will open up the floodgates by this type of strategy. I would also share, Mr. President, that I'm not unwilling to address the bigger question. In fact, I am comfortable with the decisions that we made with tax conformity and the money that we're going to send back to our citizens this fall. But I actually, quite frankly, would have preferred that we, as we were dealing with tax reform at the federal level and making concessions, would have used perhaps $450, $60 million and returned it to local governments to take the burden off of real estate through the SOQ, through the composite index. It would have been a fair way to address that. Having said that, I'm comfortable with what we did at this moment, but I think it's something that we need to address in the future. We can't continue to move on without addressing these unmet local needs, which manifest themselves in inadequate school structures, inadequate teacher pay, and other lack of services. So, Mr. President, I don't intentionally want to see this bill die, other than the fact that I don't want this to be seen as a solution for a significant problem, and for that reason, I do not support it today.
Thank the senator. What purpose, Senator from Franklin County? Senator Stanley rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I think you know where I stand on raising taxes. These bills in different forms have come across here, and I've been a no vote. My friend, the senior senator from Fairfax, has taken his time to get up from his chair after I've made those no votes and walk over here, because he rarely gets up out of his chair, and explain to me why my area in Southside and Southwest Virginia can't have nice things because we're unwilling to make the hard decisions. And unfortunately, sometimes he makes some sense, which I'm still grappling with. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, you've heard me talk about our condition in Southside and Southwest Virginia. And this bill I've been struggling with all session long. And naturally, my inclination is not to vote for it. But this summer, many of you and myself went on a tour of Virginia, and we went to every region, and we looked at the conditions of our schools. And a bipartisan subcommittee found that the condition of our schools is deteriorating day by day. And the bill to fix them in the billions of dollars grows every day. And someday it may be out of reach, because we as a body The House and Senate have failed repeatedly to address this and to make it a priority. Infrastructure is not just highways in Northern Virginia or Hampton Roads or a second tunnel or making that tunnel wider. Infrastructure starts at the schools because our Constitution requires us to provide each student a quality education. Most of our children go to public school. We have choices for them, but some of those choices are limited by their zip code, by their financial situations. And in my area, that occurs more often than not. So what we have to make sure is that we guarantee that quality education in the public system, because most of the children throughout the Commonwealth do not go on to a higher education after 12th grade. In Halifax, and the reason for this bill and why Delegate Edmonds has brought it, is that we have one of those crumbling schools. We have one high school for the whole county, like many of my regions do. This school was built in the 70s on soft ground. It is falling around the ears of its students. Halifax got an estimate that it will be $85 million to repair it, or $110 million to build a new one. The whole budget for the county for the year doesn't even come close to that. And it doesn't matter what the zip code is or what the region is. In Northern Virginia, we went and saw schools that are having issues with the roofs. In Southwest Virginia, we have schools like Lee County that only has one outlet for each classroom. Martin Luther King said, education is a great equalizer. We saw it in inner cities and rural areas. Our schools are failing our children because of the physical plant has not been maintained, cannot be maintained, the cost is too great, and we've not made it a priority. And so the child in Lee County, or the child in the inner city of Petersburg or Norfolk, where they're at a school like Booker T. Washington High School, where the school is in disrepair, are not getting the same education that somebody in Loudoun County is getting because they're at a modern school being taught a modern 21st century education. I rue the day that I'm standing here talking about a tax bill. Mark it down in your calendar. But my education, the eye-opener is that we've got to face this problem. I sent a letter to the Attorney General and I said, is this a problem that the legislature must face? And you know what the answer was from him in the legal opinion I got? It's a local problem. Well, Halifax, through this bill, is trying to address it in a local way. This will only raise, in my estimates, $2-3 million a year. But it might enable them to get bonds so that they can build this school. Because every year that they don't do something for that high school, the quality of the education, irrespective of the hard work of those teachers to try to provide it, is lessened because the building they're in is unsafe, the building they're in is out of date, and they start out, when they graduate from high school, somewhere less, Mr. President, than someone who graduates from a very shiny, brand new, and modern school in Northern Virginia. In any circumstance, I would vote against this bill. But after my tour this year of these schools throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, I must tell you that I will vote for this bill. Because they're trying to do something about it. And let us not forget also that this is a referendum. This does not automatically increase the sales tax in Halifax County. Let it be left to the people to decide. Because that's what a democracy is all about. And if the people of Halifax County want to fix their school and find a way to pay for it, then we should give them the tool to do it. As the chairman of local government, I see too often where we, under Dillon's rule, enjoy handcuffing our localities. And then don't give them the resources in order to accomplish what they have to accomplish. No county is the same in Virginia. Everyone is unique and different. In my area, as you've heard from me year after year, we used to be on the economic mountaintop. Now we're at the bottom of the hill. And so for me standing here today to tell you that it has been an education in learning what our needs are locally and how we solve them when we, the General Assembly, won't address them. Or the Attorney General says, it's not my problem, it's not your problem. Then let's let them decide. And so I urge my brothers and sisters in this body to give Halifax the chance to determine their own destiny, not just for themselves, but for their children. Because I believe education leads the way. It's what my dad always taught me. And I believe for us, in order to build our economy again in Southside and Southwest Virginia, we have to create a workforce pipeline. And that workforce pipeline begins in kindergarten. So let's make sure we're giving them a world-class 21st century education. And with that, Mr. President, I'd make a parliamentary inquiry.
See your inquiry?
Mr. President, being that this is a bill under HB 1634 that addresses a particular county in Virginia, what would be required, the vote count for it to pass this chamber?
The vote requirement is 27 votes.
Thank you, Mr. President. 27 votes. I hope some of my brothers and sisters on my side of the aisle can take the leap that I'm taking here today. I understand if you can't, but I know now why the senior senator from Fairfax spends so much time over here at my desk. I thank you for his wisdom. I don't always take it, but I understand it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, senator from James City County? Senator Norman Rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of House Bill 1634. And I'll say, Mr. President, I won't be as passionate, and I won't be as loquacious or as humorous as the senator from Franklin on it. It's a rare occasion I head in the opposite direction from my co-chairman of finance, but there are a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, I haven't struggled with it 1 minute. And some of that is based upon my experiences before I ever arrived here. I have believed in self-help for localities where the state has reneged and declined to try to help them. The senator mentioned earlier about what we've done in Northern Virginia on raising taxes, whether we've done in Hampton Roads on raising taxes to construct roads. And some of you may recall last year you were supportive of me in what was now disaffectionately referred to in the historic triangle as the Tommy tax. And that's where we raised the sales tax to promote tourism in the historic triangle, which had no referendum on it. And so the fact that the folks in Halifax are willing to move in this direction, I suggest that they deserve the opportunity. The issue was raised that there are other localities who would like to do this. I'm very familiar with it because several of my localities came to me and said, will you please add us on to House Bill 1634? I said, no, not now, because we don't want a Christmas tree this bill, and I want to try to discourage any other locality from adding on there and potentially jeopardizing the opportunity that Halifax has had. Mr. President, referendums are very interesting. Prior to coming to the Senate of Virginia, I spent 4 years in local government on the Board of Supervisors. And referendums are great because what they can do is they can insulate your Board of Supervisors or your city councils from the accusation that you raised taxes, that you trust the people. And it's interesting to me, trust the people. It is okay to do a referendum on expanding gaming in the Commonwealth of Virginia because we trust the people. And it may not be something that I believe in my heart or in my political mind, but I trust the people to make the right decision. I would say finally, and I do agree with my co-chairman, that perhaps a preferred approach would be a more comprehensive reformation of for financially distressed areas in Virginia and a uniform tax approach. It hadn't happened in 28 years that I have been here, and it ain't going to happen in another 28. We've had so many commissions, so many studies, so many recommendations, and very few of them have been implemented. And I suggest to you that I think it is a gross a gross inequity to say to a county that has $33,000 in average or medium income that we are not going to help you because we at the state level have not been able to implement a comprehensive policy. I would encourage the body to deliver 27 votes for that locality.
Thanks, Senator. For what purpose, Senator from Northern Fairfax? Senator Howe rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Some needs are urgent, and they can't wait for us to dither around and try to find a large compromise on all of tax reform. And what's urgent is that children be in decent schools. I haven't actually visited the school in Halifax, but from what I'm hearing, I would not want my child there, and I can't imagine anybody wanting their child there. The issue that we never seem to get around to is the big tax reform issue and how we're going to deal with it. It is absolutely unfair to expect children to go to a bad school till we adults come up with some sort of solution that, as the majority leader has said, for the 28 years we've been here, we haven't been able to resolve. I do have one little disagreement, however, with the senator from Franklin. All schools in Northern Virginia aren't shiny. We have some problems too. But I want to just say, and I've said it before, my constituents pay quite a bit through the composite index to help other parts of the state, and they're happy to do it because they believe in the importance of public education. But one question I get repeatedly is, well, we're taxing ourselves more than the rest of the state is taxing themselves. And this is a wonderful answer for me to be able to say. They want to tax themselves. We have to let them tax themselves. This is an important enough issue for everybody, that we provide the best possible education for our kids. So I want to encourage everybody, let's get to that 27 votes. Thanks.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, the senator from Western Fairfax? Senator Marsden rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak briefly to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
I was on Senator Stanley's committee, and we got a chance to see the condition of schools around the Commonwealth. And this is probably one of the most important bills of the year because it's a canary in the coal mine of what's going on here in the Commonwealth. The economic disparity between our regions don't support the old system of local governments making these kinds of decisions about their schools. You know, they need our help. If it's not just our financial help, it's also our ability to help them help themselves. Two songs occur to me from Bob Dylan right now. One is The Times They Are Changing, and this disparity is the change that's going on in the Commonwealth, and I don't see it being solved anytime soon. And the second is A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. Because if we keep putting these decisions off, somebody's going to get stuck with the bill for this, and we're not going to have a good plan for it. We need to get started now in solving these problems. The gentleman from Franklin's committee was a great start for this. I know he turned in some bills to create some vehicles so that we can advance into the future and fund some of these projects, but we can't leave our children out there hanging. The school systems that created these schools back in the day were vibrant communities with strong economies, and that's gone. And I don't know how we're going to solve this problem, but we better be prepared the next time we sit down in this chamber next year to get started on this, because we can't leave our children in this situation. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, senator from Fairfax City? Senator Peterson rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak briefly to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I wanted to make 2 points. One is, what's good for Halifax will eventually be good for Fairfax. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to pass this type of autonomous taxing authority in one locality, don't think eventually it won't happen in other localities. I was here as a young lad in 2002 when we actually had this proposal, and the House voted to adjourn rather than actually have us bring it to a vote. And some of the members that were here that day will remember that. So I feel like we've kind of come full circle, and that's good. That's good. But that's the first thing. The second thing is, that no one seems to talk about, is we put all of our fiscal stress on the sales tax. You know, 5 years ago we voted to raise, or 6 years ago we voted to raise the sales tax for transportation. Next year maybe it's for mental health. We always put it on the sales tax, okay? There's all sorts of alternative ways that we can raise revenue, but it always comes back to the sales tax. I'm telling you, if you keep raising the sales tax, eventually you're going to drive purchases underground. You're going to create a black market that's not going to be sustainable. So I support this bill. I support the idea of local autonomy in taxation. But at the end of the day, until we go back and relook at what we did in 2013 with transportation and keep putting things on the sales tax, this is going to become an untenable system. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the bill, and even more briefly.
Senator has the floor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any songs going on in my head right now, and I'm still trying to get over music therapy from the senator from Fauquier. But let me just say this, and I want to thank everybody that was here when we passed the bills that allowed sales tax raising in my region of the state. What it's done, and what's most recently here this past week, was announce the largest single project, the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, that I think may be ongoing in the nation right now at $3.3 billion. None of that would have been possible, and that's just one of the major projects. If you've had a chance to drive down 64, you'll see the results of that. All of that was made possible by the folks that were here that supported our region in that bill to raise the sales tax, to adjust the fuels tax, to make those projects possible. And I know that echoed here with the same thing that we've talked about in Northern Virginia when we've done that in the past to assist Northern Virginia with their transportation problems. You know, different parts of the state have different problems. And down in the South Side, the problem is lack of population, lack of that. They have to turn to unique ways. And so I thank you all for supporting our region when we needed it. And as long as I'm here and some other region asks to support their region, I'm going to be there for them. And hope that continues on. That's what makes this body and the Commonwealth, quite frankly, the place we all love to live. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, the senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we've heard maybe 27 speeches in support of the bill already, so I'd like to offer a counter view.
Senator has the floor.
First, speaking to the bill itself, the very fact that it's come over from a 2% from the House, that was what was necessary for Halifax to be able to construct a school, and now we're told it can be done for half the amount of money. I question that. I question why it went from 2% to 1%. Another thing I question is the statement that Halifax County is not a commercial center, so that's why we need to pass a tax that's based on commercial activity. It makes no sense to pass a tax for a place that has issues with commercial activity to say we're going to make it more expensive to purchase items here than elsewhere. And saying that, you know, this is just a tool for them. The tax rate in Halifax is under 50 cents for real estate. That's remarkably low in the Commonwealth. We talked about the tax increase in Northern Virginia for transportation and the sales tax increase that happened there. When that was proposed, I don't think Fairfax had a property tax under 50 cents. I think it might have been over $1. And you don't have to go to Northern Virginia to find property tax rates over $1. I pay $1.09 in Roanoke County. And so to ask why not everyone else should get a sales tax is perplexing to me. What also I found interesting was hearing some of the remarks from the class of 91, as they've been affectionately called earlier this session, about how there hasn't been these increases over the years. I'd remind everyone that when the class of 91 entered the General Assembly, the sales tax in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, if I recall correct, which I was 6, but I believe it was 4.5%. And it's now 6 in Northern Virginia. And as the leader from James City County pointed out, it's even higher in parts of Hampton Roads now. So to say that this General Assembly has not increased taxes since 91 over the last 28 years, it's disingenuous to suggest that. The sales tax has gone up not just in those localities, it's also gone up in Southwest Virginia and Southside from 4.5 to 5.3, but it's gone up even higher there. And what also wasn't mentioned was how that happened in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads on the transportation one. We heard that this bill is great because it's got a local referendum. Well, I would tell you, if history is any example, it doesn't matter what happens in that referendum in Halifax. Because if that referendum doesn't pass, all we have to do is see what happened in Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads. And I know that in 2002, when Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, at least at the time, had a property tax of over $1, so more than twice the rate that Halifax has at that time. And they said, we need to have a referendum to raise the transportation dollars. We're going to increase it. And what did the voters in Northern Virginia say that day? They said no. And what did the voters in Hampton Roads say that day? They said no. But it didn't matter. The referendum, it was never really about a referendum. The bottom line was this General Assembly was going to raise those taxes either way. So, I wish the best to, the Ken Cuccinelli equivalent of Halifax County, who, led the fight against the Northern Virginia transportation tax. But honestly, it doesn't matter how good they do or don't do. I suggest that we're going to see a bill back here that will raise the sales tax, probably not just in Halifax County, but all over Virginia. I just point out something from the Tax Foundation. It says the tax authority of one small county in Southside Virginia might not seem that pressing of an issue, but the consequence could be considerable. Because if Halifax County can impose a local sales tax, why not everyone else? In fact, Halifax County enjoys some of the lowest effective tax rates on real property in the Commonwealth. If this is the foot in the door for a local sales tax option, it's not going to be easy to say no to any other locality, especially when almost every other locality in the Commonwealth has a higher property tax than Halifax. And if your goal is local tax increase, sales tax everywhere, this really is the bill for you. Because if it can be justified in a county that's got under 50 cent property tax, it's justified everywhere. And I would just point out that when we go back to the sales tax, again and again, as has been pointed out by the senator from Fairfax City, this is one of the most regressive taxes we have. And this is something that the Commonwealth's going to pursue. So I'm confident that more than 27 votes are going to go up on the board today, and I suggest more than 27 votes are going to go up on the board in the next few years for several other counties, and this is going to be just like the transient occupancy tax. And I thought about reading the list of how many counties now can go above the 2%, but I just don't have enough breath to go through that list, because we're now at the point where pretty much everyone is. And that's where, if we go down this path today, just like it was suggested, we're going to be coming back with almost every other county down the road, and I think that's disappointing.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw, rise?
Mr. President, I rise to support the bill.
Senator's the floor.
Certainly no speeches on the floor today have surprised me one bit, particularly the last one. And I would imagine even if they had a higher real estate tax rate, given the land values down there and the value of property, it probably wouldn't make a dent in what's required to help build that school. One of the municipalities I represent has an average income level of almost 5 times, in fact it is 5 times what it is in Halifax County. And these folks need to build a whole new high school. And because of where the property is located, they can do a joint venture with the developer and get a fair amount from part of the commercial part of the property. That doesn't exist in Halifax County. These people are trying to help themselves. And the fact that the General Assembly has failed to take the initiative and help out various localities doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. And we're a commonwealth, and we're supposed to look out for each other. These people are crying for help, and those kids should not be forced to go to school in substandard structures. And they've asked for a referendum. We didn't have a referendum when, as the sales tax went up in Northern Virginia, but the people understood, fully understood, and hardly any of us ever got any emails in objecting to this. They understood that they were getting something for their money, and that was a chance to get out of, never-ending traffic jams up there. Do we still have them? We still have them. But they're not as bad as they would have been if we'd have done nothing. And, on the Beltway, as an example, we have the hot lanes there. And it's taken just enough traffic of the people who are willing to pay. It's taken just enough traffic off of the outer lanes that you now move a lot better on the Beltway than you did before. And the hot lanes will eventually go from Fredericksburg, will go all the way to Fredericksburg from the Potomac River. They don't have the resources in a lot of the rural areas to help themselves. And 21 years ago, we did a pretty stupid thing up here called the car tax. It's taken $950 million a year right off the top of the general fund. $950 million a year. 23% of that goes to my district. Goes to my county, Fairfax County. 23%. 43% goes to Planning District 8, okay, who definitely needed help, all right? So we're living with some of the mistakes that we made. Those people in Halifax County are crying for help. And keep in mind, this still has a referendum in it. They're going to have to vote to increase the tax themselves. But they ought to at least have that opportunity. And, Mr. President, that's why I'm supporting the bill. Senator Stanley was right on target.
Senator, what purpose, Senator from Loudon? Senator Black rise.
I rise to move the pending question.
We're done, huh? Yeah. Question is, shall the pending question be ordered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 26, noes 14.
Ayes 26, noes 14. The pending question has been ordered. The question is, shall House Bill 1634 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 30, noes 10.
Ayes 30, noes 10. House Bill 1634 passes.
House Bill 2034, a bill relating to General Registrar's petition for removal. The committee amendment has been adopted by the Senate.
Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I expect for this to take at least that long. Okay. So, Mr. President, I need to take this back a step. So I'm going to ask the body, with their indulgence, to take a vote. Having voted on the prevailing side, by which we adopted the Privileges and Elections Committee amendment, I'm going to move adoption of the amendment, but ask that the body reject it. I'm sorry. No, I need to move to reconsider the vote by which we adopted the amendment. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's what we'll do first.
Thank you.
The question is, shall the vote by which the committee amendment was adopted be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Now, with the recommendation that we reject the committee's amendment. I'll move adoption of the amendment and then just speaking to that motion very, very
There's
briefly.
the floor.
For those members who were in the Privileges and Elections Committee and heard the discussion about that amendment, what that amendment sought to do was clarify that county attorneys would be involved in a process whereby they would represent local electoral boards. And this was simply clarification language that was added. Subsequent to the adoption of that amendment, there's been a lot of discussion, and the patron has agreed that when it went back to the House, he would like to remove that amendment. And I said, fine, that could happen when it got back to the House. But there were then a number of localities who approached members of the Senate. And I was told that we'd have a problem with this bill if we didn't actually do that here in this body. It poses a conflict of interest, and we've heard from a number of localities. So I just wanted to address that here. And with that, I would move adoption of that amendment, but request that the body reject it.
Thank the senator. With the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the committee amendment be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The committee amendment is rejected. Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Now we have House Bill 2034 before us. We heard this kind of explained and fully debated a couple days ago. It was asked that we take it back for the day, but just as a refresher, what this bill does is it changes the process by which a local registrar can be removed from office. It takes it out of the hands of the Electoral Board and provides a level of due process that we do not currently have. It kind of depoliticizes that process, for lack of a better description, and allows it to happen through a petition to the Circuit Court. And with that, I renew my motion that House Bill 2034 pass.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2034? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2034 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 17.
Ayes 23, noes 17. House Bill 2034 passes.
House Bill 2310, a bill relating to local flood.
Sorry, Senator from Lynchburg.
Yes, Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side by which House Bill 1634 passed, I would ask that we reconsider that vote.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1634 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the reasons previously given and articulated by those that stood in support of House Bill 1634, I now renew that motion that House Bill 1634 pass. And as a reminder, parliamentary inquiry.
Senator.
Mr. President, what would be the vote required for this to pass because it pertains to a particular region or county?
It is a 27 vote requirement.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1634 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 29, noes 11.
Ayes 29, noes 11. House Bill 1634 passes.
House Bill 2310, a bill relating to local floodplain regulation, reported from the committee. The committee amendment was adopted and the floor amendment has been adopted.
Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that House Bill 2310 pass. And speaking to that bill,
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. We've had a lot of discussion on this. This allows local governments to then regulate floodplain areas in accordance with any new adoption of regulations or requirements regarding floodplains in their region. What we did in the amendment, remember the bill itself where there was some objection is that this would apply retroactively, which was a concern constitutionally that it could amount to a governmental taking. This now is only prospectively, so any new regulations in floodplains, which are owned by individuals too. There are floodplain areas that individual homeowners in Virginia or individual landowners in the Commonwealth own these areas, and those, the ability of the locality to regulate those areas is basically codified by this bill. For those reasons, Mr. President, I move that HB 2310 pass.
Mr. President.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
I apologize to the gentleman. Could the bill go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 2310 will go by for the day.
House Bill 2549, a bill relating to cluster zoning density calculation, reported from the Committee on Local Government with amendments.
Senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can House Bill 2549 go by for the day, sir?
Without objection, House Bill 2549 will go by for the day.
House Bill 2252, a bill relating to firearms ordinances, property located in multiple localities, reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources.
Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the bill pass and speaking to it.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, what this bill does is it allows you to elect the firearms ordinance applicable to the county where you have property that actually is in between two counties. So if you own property and you've got 100 acres and 60 acres of it is in one county, 40 of it's in the other, but it's contiguous, you can elect to abide by the firearms ordinance of the 60-acre parcel county. That's confusing. And you get to tell DGIF which ordinance you want to be, you want to comply with. This is to deal with people who have property and they have different laws actually that affect their property because they're in two different counties. So this tries to make it a little clearer and let people understand what law they have to abide by.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson, rise?
Gentleman, yield for a question.
Senator, yield for a question.
I yield.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Let's say I have property that lies in two counties, and I've got on one end maybe my residence, my garage, my business, and on the other end I have, like, say, 75 acres of open land. Maybe it's over open water, and I decide to set up a hunt club in that other end. And the county says, we don't, we're going to tax that or we're going to somehow regulate that. Would now I be able to sort of choose the non-participating county to regulate myself? Do you understand my question?
I think I do, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
No, this is not what that does. What this does is it specifically talks about the firearms ordinance, and maybe a better example is some counties, if you're deer hunting, allow you to use a rifle. Some counties do not. Some only allow shotgun because of the topography. This allows you to elect the firearm ordinance of the county which is the largest portion of your property if you want to do that, to affect your whole property. So you could hunt the whole property with a rifle even if one county said you couldn't.
Further question.
Further question?
And I follow what the gentleman's saying, and I understand you may permit rifles to be used in a county that's more hilly or has a sort of a more uneven topography and you don't want to have it in a flat level. But that being the case, if let's say your land is on the flatter portion, shouldn't you be bound by the laws of that county since that county board elected those? I mean, they chose those laws for that topography?
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the gentleman would probably want to vote no to this bill if he believes that.
All right. Senator, what purpose, Senator from Eastern Fairfax? Senator Sorvell, rise.
Well, yeah, Senator from King George, yield for one question.
Senator Yield.
I yield.
Senator Yield, you have the floor.
I understand how the landowner can pick, and the landowner will know what the law is. But say I'm a hunter. How is the hunter on notice as to which law applies when they go walking onto this property if the landowner is elected to apply the law of a neighboring county? So I mean, I could see a hunter being, found guilty or charged with something when they had no idea that, Prince William County law applied in Fairfax County because they didn't even bother to go look up Prince William County law.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the person who was hunting would have to have permission, and you would assume that if they got permission to be on someone's property, the property owner would tell them what rule applies to the property. You don't just get to go walking on people's property without permission. Otherwise, you're charged with trespassing.
Another question?
Gentleman, yield for another question.
Senator Yield.
I yield.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
I thought you can only get charged with trespassing if there's a sign posting telling you to keep off. Otherwise, you can walk over anybody's property.
Senator has the floor.
If there's a question in that, you can be charged with a Class 1 misdemeanor if there is a posted sign, or if sometimes you can put white rings around a tree which symbolize no trespassing. But if you come onto someone else's property with a gun to hunt, then you can be charged with trespassing to hunt, even if the property's not posted. It's only a Class 3 misdemeanor as opposed to a Class 1. But you still can be charged with trespassing to hunt.
All right. I thank the gentleman.
Thanks, Senator. For what purpose does the junior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan, rise?
Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make sure the body is aware this applies to more than just hunting. And one of my jurisdictions has raised a concern. Henrico County has ordinances that prohibit discharge of a firearm near a school or within a certain distance from a road for reasons that make sense for that county and that their Board of Supervisors adopted. But if we adopt this legislation, then if you have a property that crosses the line into Charles City County, which might not have the same ordinance, but is within the yardage of a school or of a road that Henrico would have prohibited it, it doesn't matter whether they're hunting or not. Just discharging a firearm would violate the ordinances of Henrico County, and I think they're really concerned about having the property owner make that decision rather than the elected officials that represent the jurisdiction where that land sits or where that gun would be discharged.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard other than the patron on House Bill 2252? Seeing none, Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not really the patron. I'm just standing in. And just to correct the gentle lady from the city of Richmond, if you look at line 14 of the bill, it only applies to people who are hunting and nothing else.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall House Bill 2252 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 28, noes 12.
Ayes 28, noes 12. House Bill 2252 passes.
House Bill 2749, a bill relating to temporary assistance for needy families, restrictions on use of cash assistance, reported from the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services with amendments.
Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to accept the committee amendments. Speaking of that.
Thanks.
Mr. President, the committee amendments would add that the report from TANF not just go in general to the General Assembly, but actually to the chairman of Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services and the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions. So with that, Mr. President, I'd ask the committee amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendments be adopted? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are adopted. Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask that the bill pass and speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the body, for those of you not on rehab, this is a really simple bill, and what it says is that the department shall report annually by December 1st now to the Committee on Rehab and the House Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions, generating a report of cases involving multiple violations by a single TANF recipient. Now, the discussion in the committee was that less than 1% of our TANF recipients is fraud, but when you look at the greater number of dollars that are spent on TANF, that 1% worked out, I think, to about $1.4 million of fraud. And so it was a policy decision in the committee to go ahead and let's hear the report, and maybe that's something that we can work on as a committee going forward. So I would ask that the bill pass based on that.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola, rise?
To speak to the bill, Mr.
Senator
President.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you. I would ask the body to vote no on this bill, because it's really how we want to allocate our state resources. And when you have a program that is running as well as TANF is running, and it is one of the best run programs actually in the entire country, shouldn't we be asking our workers in the Department of Social Services perhaps to do more training with our local caseworkers in our jurisdictions, and probably provide a more comprehensive one-stop shopping model, which would, I believe, reduce the error rate even further. So this is in my view, this is a burden on our department staff, and I don't think it's a good allocation of resources when there really isn't a problem here. This is a solution looking for a problem. So for that reason, I would ask the body to vote no. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove, rise?
Speak to the bill, Mr. President.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Basically, if you look at the financial impact statement on this bill, there's no financial impact. That's right. Department of Social Services says they can do this without a problem. They already get the information. Why not share it with us? This is transparency. This is information to the masses. This is a sunshine bill, Mr. President. Please pass this bill.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on House Bill 2749? Seeing none, the question is, shall House Bill 2749 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, noes 17.
Ayes 23, noes 17. House Bill 2749 passes.
Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move all the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendar on the second reading, including all House bills on pages 37 through 40, including House Bill 1772 through House Bill 2317, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 37 through 40, House Bill 1772 through House Bill 2317, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would now ask that all the bills be passed by for the day, sir.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading be passed by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Let me get through this.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bill on second reading, Senate Bill 1789, a bill to designate the bridge on Interstate 81 in Smith County over White Top Road, the Trooper Lucas B. Dowell Bridge. Reported for the Committee on Transportation.
Senator from Lynchburg, Senator Peake.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I believe that is pretty self-explanatory. I ask that the bill advance to its third reading.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed in advance to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed in advance to its third reading.
Uncontested calendar, House Joint Resolutions on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would now move that all of the House Joint Resolutions on the second reading, including all resolutions on pages 40 through 45, including House Joint Resolution 581 through 674, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of the House Joint Resolutions on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 40 through 45, House Joint Resolution 581 through House Joint Resolution 674, be waived? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The reading of the titles is waived. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I now move that all the resolutions be passed by for the day, sir.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the House joint resolutions on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading go by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolutions will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate joint resolutions on first reading. Senate Joint Resolution 418, confirming an appointment by the Senate Committee on Rules to the Virginia Conflict of Interest and Ethics Advisory Council. Senate Joint Resolution 424, commemorating the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht. Supplemental calendar number 1.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move that all of the House bills on the second reading on both the uncontested calendar, including all House bills on pages 1 through 23, including House Bill 1668 through House Bill 2791, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and the second constitutional reading of the titles be dispensed with.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 1 through 23, House Bill 1668 through House Bill 2791, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would now ask that all of the bills be passed by for the day, sir.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading be passed by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bill on first reading, Senate Bill 1790, a bill relating to the City of Virginia Beach sports or entertainment project. Uncontested calendar, House Joint Resolution on second reading, House Joint Resolution 610, requesting the Secretary of Natural Resources to study the effects of wind tide flooding in the southern watershed. Report. Okay. He's
Mr. President.
Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Yes, Mr. President, moving back to Senate Bill 1790, I would
Senator has the floor.
Rules of the Senate be suspended and we dispense with the second constitutional reading.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second constitutional reading be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended and the second constitutional reading is dispensed with. Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Now, Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 1790 be engrossed and advanced to its third reading.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the bill be engrossed in advance to its third reading? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is engrossed in advance to its third reading. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
And, Mr. President, I now move that we suspend the rules of the Senate and dispense with a third constitutional reading of Senate Bill 1790.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The rules are suspended and the third constitutional reading is dispensed with. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
And now, Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 1790 pass, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, Senate Bill 1790 really is late here simply because of failing to get docketed on the Senate Finance Committee and need for special attention to move this bill forward quickly. As we talked earlier about different sales taxes and things that we try to do for different venues around the state, Hotel Roanoke comes to mind, a number of other venues around the Commonwealth. What this bill does is for a new venue sponsored by Pharrell Williams, a very large $300 million investment being made in the city of Virginia Beach. For those familiar with the city, it's on what we call the Dome site. That the portion of sales taxes, a portion of the sales taxes generated from this new facility will be dedicated towards paying the city's obligation on bonds to support the private investment, which by far and away the vast majority of this investment will be private investment, will be made. So with that explanation, I move the bill pass.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard on Senate Bill 1790? Seeing none, the question is, shall Senate Bill 1790 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, no 7.
Ayes 33, no 7. Senate Bill 1790 passes. The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can we return to the morning hour briefly?
Without objection, we'll return to the morning hour.
Mr. President, I stand for the purposes of an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Senate in our gallery today, and I believe they're right behind us, so I can't see them. Are they still up there? Okay, good. We have students from Armstrong High School from the area here, and they've come to watch us legislate and learn more about the process. This morning when they arrived, they took a tour of the Capitol, which I think they were enjoying very well when I saw them for that brief moment. But I really want to highlight one of their teachers who is a great friend, a dear friend of mine, and a dear friend of my family, Frank Scott. He's up there as well. He is the grandson of Wendell Scott, the Jackie Robinson of NASCAR. And I was very happy to see him today, as I am always when I get the opportunity to see one of the members of the Scott family. I'll be talking about Wendell Scott in our moment of personal privilege a little bit later. But if I could, Mr. President, yield to Senator McClellan, she'd like to introduce the individual students.
Absolutely. Junior Senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining Mr. Scott and teacher Ann Cuthbert Washington are the following students who are here watching their government in action: Kayla Wilson, Mariah Gales, Simone Turner, Rodia Wesley, Jordan Hill, Alexis Washington, Santisha Hickman, Janae Valentine, Akita Patilier, Magnesia Hamill, Zayasha Kosef, Joanna Terry, Jamisa Wesley, Michaela Lee, Kiera Lewis. If I mispronounced any of those names, I apologize. but we are glad to have you here watching your government in action.
Thank the senators, both senators. Would our leaders from Armstrong High School please rise in the gallery if you are able? Take a stand. No, that's all of you. I want all of you to stand up. Everybody. Yeah. No, that's all of you. Thank you all so much. And this is being recorded, so you are on television. You get to share this later with your friends and your family. But we are so grateful to have you here, so proud of what you're doing at Armstrong High School. And it's wonderful to have you here in the Senate and in the Capitol, learning more about your government. This is your house, and all the wonderful work that you're doing in school and outside of school, being leaders. Is something that we care deeply about. We praise and applaud you for. Mr. Scott, thank you so much for your tremendous leadership, and you have a legacy in your family in the Commonwealth of Virginia that clearly is extended to these young people as well. And so we know that each one of you is going to do amazing things in your lives. We want you to dream big, to work hard, play by the rules, and good things are going to happen to every single one of you. So I would ask everyone to please join me in sending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our leaders from Armstrong High School. Yes, that's you on TV. Senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Shortly after Thanksgiving, we got a delightful memo, I think it was from the clerk's office, saying that we were going to get a little bit more money in our staff budget to hire a second person. Whoever made that decision, I want to thank them. It was really needed. But I have here visiting today my second person, and her name is Adita Wiesner. Oh, thank you. Her name is Adita Wiesner. We won't be seeing much of her down here in Richmond because she's going to be helping me up in Northern Virginia, but I hope you'll give her the warm welcome of the Senate.
I thank the senator. Would our friend Adita Wiesner please rise in the gallery if you are able? Adita, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your tremendous work with the senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howe, who we all love, who is really a fantastic person and legislator. And so we know that you're going to do great things together, and happy to have a second person on board. I know she is thrilled by that happening as well. But if you ever need anything, you let us all know. But we're proud to have you as a member of the Senate family. And I would ask everyone please to join me in extending the warmest welcome of the Senate to our newest member and leader, Adita Wiesner. Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Thank the senator. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, in response to the senator from Petersburg who challenged us to share stories that would be relevant to our celebration of Black History Month, I would just like to share a brief story of a dear friend who passed away way too early, but he and his family were leaders in Arlington County. And this gentleman was Charles Monroe. And Charles Monroe's dad was the first African-American judge to be appointed in our circuit court. Charles's mother was a social worker, and she also served on the school board. Charles went on to Duke University and received a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science, and he also obtained his law degree from Washington and Lee Law School. He served as our chair of the Arlington Human Rights Commission. He served on the board of directors for the Arlington Housing Corporation. He was a fierce advocate for affordable housing. He cared very deeply about equity and justice in our county. And, of course, he chaired the Board of Zoning Appeals and continued on a number of other civic groups in our county. And much to my delight, he was elected to the Arlington County Board in 1999 and became its chair in 2003. Charles brought such patience and vision to the county. We were all very impressed, very pleased, and we all learned from Charles. When he assumed the chairmanship of our governing board, He gave one of the most impressive and inspiring speeches we had heard from a chair. Charles went on to lay out a number of goals in his speech, and he said, "Our leadership is a vision that must be driven by our values. Our values are who we are and what we represent." And he said it means that we must, for a moment, step into the shoes of another and see the world through that person's eyes. And when we act ethically and understand that perspective, we move from selfishness to selflessness. And we must look to the past to reflect upon our remembrances, our experiences, and lessons learned. Going forward, Charles noted that his community will be diverse and inclusive, and it will be a world-class community, and that Arlington must be a place where people unite to form a caring, a learning, and participatory community, a community where each person is important. He continued to lay out a vision which talked about allocating dollars to our school system in a way that really enabled each child to succeed. We ensured that parks were in every neighborhood. And I believe when he was on the county board, I convinced him we should start investigating dog parks. And he really thought I was a little crazy, even though we were very good friends. As it turned out, dog parks proved to be quite the popular amenity in Arlington County. But most of all, Charles worked very hard to increase our affordable housing stock. And we worked together on strategies to provide additional density, to perhaps reduce parking allocations for our nonprofit housing providers, and most importantly, to ensure that those individuals, families who really were at the risk of being homeless would have first access to our affordable housing units in the county. In short, Charles gave Arlington, and I would say the Commonwealth, a vision that we could all embrace, a vision where everybody was important, everybody could participate, and everybody could enjoy the benefits of self-governance. So I ask my colleagues, I don't know if there's another point of personal privilege today, but I would be honored, and I know that my community back home would be honored if we could adjourn today in honor of Charles Monroe.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Not one to let go of the dance challenge. I don't have my dancing shoes on right now, but I think it's important also that since I introduced the grandson of the person I want to talk about, I think this is a time to also let everybody in the body know of who in the African American community has influenced me. And it's a twofer. One of the first books I ever read, my father gave to me, and that book was Up From Slavery by Booker Taliaferro Washington. And he gave it to me as an indication of the struggles that we all face, but that some struggles are bigger and greater than ourselves because of others who put the obstacles in our way. Booker T. Washington was born in slavery in Franklin County in 1856. From there, once emancipation and the war ended, he walked 500 miles to what is now Hampton University. Walked from Franklin County to Hampton Institute at the time. For the same reason that my father said that education led the way. There, he convinced the Institute to give him a job as a janitor and to use that job so that it would pay for his tuition. Taken under the wing of General Armstrong, he then learned, earned his degree, and was asked to stay and teach at Hampton Institute. A couple years later, there was a school that was being founded down in the South for all those African Americans who were free to provide them with an education. That school, which he helped found, make, and grow, is now Tuskegee, a wonderful place of higher education, an institution of higher learning. My dad, one of his heroes was Booker T. Washington. We talked often about that book that he made me read, and it really made a difference in me. For my father, being so poor, could not have gone to college, but for a scholarship. But he also said, and always said, that he remembered the words of Booker T. Washington, that education could lead the way. In fact, I remember a quote, and permit me just to read it for you, and it was one of my father's favorite quotes from Booker T. Washington. I have learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has had to overcome while trying to succeed. That is still a lesson for us all, even to this day. And so then I am reminded of Booker T. Washington every day when I'm at home, because his birthplace is approximately 1/2 mile from where my law office is. In fact, the address of my law office is 13508 Booker T. Washington Highway. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been there, it's a moving monument, and I urge all of you to be there. Now, my law firm itself was built in 1798. It was the neighboring plantation house to the Burroughs. It stands in its same condition as it was in 1798. And as legend tells it and history tells it, Booker would come to what is now my property, to play with the other children, but also to work because he was a slave. To me, that has meaning in ways that not only how I think about education with New College and other things and those opportunities, but also for people who are in my area who don't have those opportunities in the same way that Booker T. Washington didn't have those opportunities, but a 500-mile walk wasn't going to stop him from accomplishing what he wanted to do in life. And for the same reasons, I am blessed to have as friends the Scott family of Danville, who again knew that education led the way. Wendell Scott, as we honored him a couple years ago with a center aisle presentation, was the Jackie Robinson of NASCAR. In the 50s, the first African-American driver in stock car racing. He had modest upbringing. He was in World War II. He was an expert auto mechanic. Legend has it he ran a little moonshine. That's how he learned how to drive fast. You got to drive fast when you got moonshine in your trunk. But from that, he had a love of racing, matched only by his love of family. And from that, he was determined to succeed when others said he could not. He made his 500-mile journey not on foot, but in a race car. In Jacksonville, he won a race, and they wouldn't even admit it to him. They didn't give him the trophy. He knew he won. 3 days later, they admitted it to him, but he didn't need a trophy to tell him what he knew, that he was a champion. And from that, every one of his children, he was going to ensure that they got not only a quality education, but a college education. Frank Sr., I could go on and on. They're all educators. Frank Jr., right up there, teacher. Incredible human being. This family continuously gives back to its community, as evidenced by my great friend Warwick Scott's Wendell Scott Foundation, that makes its potential and its promise and its mission to go into our communities to mentor children, to help them achieve the American dream when financially they might not have those opportunities, or because of their zip code, they are denied those opportunities. The Scott family is an inspiration to me every day. Frank sitting up there, Warwick, Frank Sr., you've got to meet them. Mabel, everybody. Amazing human beings. And so that's what's touched me. May it be from the first time my father gave me the greatest book I've ever read. I have a copy of it in my office, Up From Slavery, to understanding how now, Mr. President, community matters and education leads the way to opportunity, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. Because you, all of these children in here, these young men and women, have the absolute God-given right that Booker T. Washington fought for and Wendell Scott took by the horns, that they have the absolute right to achieve the American dream and be who they want to be. And we must do everything to protect that right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. What purpose, Senator from Southern Fairfax? Senator Barker, rise.
Mr. President, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I want to start by thanking the senator from Petersburg, who challenged those of us who are not African American to speak during Black History Month about Black history. In other years, many of the speeches have been given were about African Americans who lived extraordinary lives, accomplished much, often overcoming many barriers. This year, most of the speeches have been more personal, talking about African Americans who've had an impact on our lives. I've planned 2 Black History Month speeches in recent years, and in both cases, someone beat me to the punch and took the person I was going to speak about. The first was in 2012, when I had read, actually not read, but listened on book tape to The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, an extraordinary, powerful book that spoke volumes to me. It was relevant in many ways to some of the issues that we were facing in this General Assembly in 2012. And part of what was significant was the thoroughness of that book, researched over many years, long after she had died, but getting information from others, including her family members, children, grandchildren, and others, and extraordinary research about the challenges that she felt, that she faced, the barriers that she faced, and what things impacted her life here in Virginia, where she grew up, in the Halifax County area that we talked about earlier today, and in Maryland, where she lived in her adult life. Part of what was significant about the book was the book did not stop with the end of her life and what happened as it related to the advancements in cancer research that were generated from her cells, but talked about the effects of her life and the challenges that she had faced and some of the similar barriers faced by her children and grandchildren as the effects of racism continued beyond just 1 or 2 generations. We learn when we understand the effects of prejudice on others, and it's critical that we do that. So even though the senator from Hampton beat me to the punch and spoke about Henrietta Lacks that year, the day before I was planning to, this year I've decided I'm not going to be deterred from speaking who I'm speaking about today. We had a presentation just a few days ago from the senator from James City County. Talked about Senator Yvonne Miller. I'm going to try to add to some of the things that he brought out. He certainly cited a lot of the things that she accomplished in life and part of the challenge that she faced in life, where she was extraordinarily successful, reaching height of getting first a college degree, then later on a master's degree, then a doctorate degree, becoming a renowned professor and affecting the lives of many students throughout the years. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the effect that she had on me and I think on many others throughout her life. When I arrived here in 2008, I got an office right next to Senator Miller's office. The two of us were in a little cubbyhole facing onto Broad Street. So we were sort of a little off by ourselves, and that made it help me get to know her better than I might have otherwise if we were just in a group of offices, all in one area. I learned from her, from the things that she was able to tell me, but also from talking to her and listening to what her life experiences had been and how she had made her life what she wanted it to be and used it to be able to affect change and development in others, focusing specifically on education, which she did with early elementary education, but also on her students at Norfolk State. Yvonne Miller had extraordinarily high standards. She had high standards for herself. She had high standards for those she worked with, and you could tell that from the amount of time they spent preparing for the committee meeting in her office next to mine, and she had high standards for all of us. I experienced her expectations of me in several instances, and I do want to let you know that I was not without chastisement having been administered to me now and then. And when I really got to feel her will and force was when I was working on redistricting. And went down to Hampton Roads to meet with various senators about sort of how we might be able to do things there. And went with the then senator from Henrico, the now Congressman Donald McEachin down to the area. We met with the senator from Portsmouth and then had indicated we were going over to meet with Senator Miller. Fortunately, the senator from Portsmouth and Senator McEachin agreed to accompany me as bodyguards when I went on that trip. I certainly learned what Senator Miller thought should be done as it related to redistricting. And with the help of the senator from Portsmouth and Senator McEachin, I survived. And I can tell the senator from northern Chesapeake that he has the district he has because that's what Senator Miller wanted. So she certainly had a way of being able to do things and to deliver her perspectives on things. She also made it clear as to what people have dealt with during their lives and how things still continue these days. We have not eliminated racism and its effects. And it may not be as overt as it was in many decades past, but clearly there are effects, sometimes subtle, sometimes it's things like low expectations, sometimes it's other things that affect the lives of people who face these types of prejudice and discrimination. I can tell you that one of the most powerful and enlightening and effective presentations I have ever heard came from Yvonne Miller. Before she had died, she and I were the two legislators from Virginia who had been picked to go to a conference in Florida put on by an organization talking about developing legislative leadership. They had senators and representatives, delegates from 2 each from 12 different states around the country. So there were 24 of us at this conference. And we met as a group, but partly we were in 2 different groups, and there were 12 in each of the 2 groups. Senator Miller and I were in one of those groups of 12. And we were talking about various things and how legislators interacted with each other and how we could learn from that and how we could move things forward. When a state representative from Utah said that he thought that things such as racism had been substantial problems in America, but we had dealt with most of those, and that things like affirmative action were no longer needed. He then sat there, and to his credit, he sat there and listened, looked her in the eye, did not bat an eye, and listened to probably a 30 or 35-minute presentation from Senator Miller, who spoke of her life, the types of issues she had faced, but also talked about what she saw all the time in young children at this day and time, when many others think that racism has been overcome. It was out of the other 11 people in that room, none of us breathed. It was that powerful. And it delivered a message that I think all of us need to continue to hear, continue to listen to, and continue to use in implementation on things. And to his credit, the representative from Utah, who was the subject of that, at the end of it, thanked her and said, "You've given me an education, something I did not know, but something I will be able to use into the future." When Senator Miller died, I moved next door into her office. And one of the things that I received from the senator from Portsmouth was a picture of Senator Yvonne Miller. It's still in my office. I am a better senator because of her, and I thank her for that.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is Senator from Spotsylvania? Senator Reeves rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for a point of personal privilege.
Thank the senator. You have the floor.
Mr. President, on behalf of my colleague from Lynchburg, we got some sad news over the weekend that a friend of mine who I met through coaching high school football this last year, we lost Coach Mark Fisher. And Mark was the head football coach of the Louisa Lions from 2003 to 2010, and again from 2014 to 2017. About 7 years ago, Mark was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and he passed away, as I mentioned. Mark was a fantastic coach. He led the Lions to 85 wins, 3 undefeated seasons, and 2 appearances in the state championship game in his career. He was honored as the Jefferson District Coach of the Year 4 times in 2005, 2006, 2009, and 2010. And I will tell you, I got to talk to Mark a couple of times. As I mentioned, I coached high school football, and we talked about young men and how to get them to do what you're trying to get them to do and make good grades in school and all those things. And the only way I can describe Mark is he's the coach's coach. And but Mark impacted the lives of hundreds of student athletes, kids who learned valuable lessons from him about toughness, determination, and really about humility and the ability to drive on despite what he was dealing with. He would take these kids and do amazing things with them. It's a loss for our community and throughout Virginia for those who knew him and who had to coach against him. He's survived by his wife Pam, his daughter Mackenzie, and his son Troy. And I think he wouldn't mind being a team player. And if we could also honor him today, Mr. President, I'm sure he wouldn't mind that at all if we honored him along with the gentlelady's person from Arlington when we adjourn today.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Roanoke County? Senator Suderline, rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the senators that have highlighted Senators Marsh and Senator Miller. I mentioned the other day the education I received working for my predecessor, Senator Smith. And during that time he was in office, most of that time we also had Senator Marsh and Senator Miller. And right across, 2 doors down from Senator Barker was our office. And I got to learn a lot from Senator Miller and her experience right here in Virginia. And I also want to thank Senator from Franklin for talking about Booker T. Washington. You heard me talk about him a few years ago when we happened to be in session on what may have been his birthday, the day he observed as his birthday. Of course, he didn't know his exact birthday because he was born into slavery. But I want to talk today about someone that was born just a few miles away from where Booker T. Washington was born, and on the Bedford side of what's now Smith Mountain Lake. But the lake wasn't there when either of these men grew up in those communities. And that man is Noel Taylor. And Noel Taylor is someone that's not as well known throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, but is one of the great civic leaders of the 20th century in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And he got his start in Bedford, and he always wanted himself remembered as the barefoot boy from Bedford County. And why he was referred to as that says a lot about who he was as a man. He grew up in Bedford County, went to segregated schools in Bedford County, elementary school there, and his family had enough money for him to have proper shoes, and his parents did their best for him, and he had very fine shoes to wear to school. And he was a good kid. He walked out of the house each day wearing those shoes that his mother wanted him to wear, and then he hid them as soon as he got to school because most of his classmates didn't have shoes, and he didn't want them to feel bad about their circumstances because he recognized he was in a better place than most of his community, and he didn't want folks to feel bad about that. There was no high school for African Americans in Bedford County when he grew up, so he had to go to high school out in Bluefield near the West Virginia line. And after high school, he was drafted in the service in the Army and served during World War II. And when he came back, he felt a calling to the ministry. And he served a few churches throughout the Commonwealth. But where he really made his impact is when he came back to the western part of the Commonwealth. And he received a call to be the pastor at High Street Baptist in Roanoke in 1961. And it was in that role that he quietly led integration in the Roanoke Valley. There were a lot of folks that did important things for integration, and they did it the best way they thought for their community. But he recognized some of the situations in Roanoke being what they were, and he, as a religious leader, gave a lot of important sermons and was outspoken. But even more importantly, behind the scenes, he worked with several prominent business leaders so that Roanoke could peacefully integrate. And for that, he won the admiration and respect of a lot of people. And he became the first African American to serve as president of the Roanoke Ministers Association. And it was in that role where he conducted a lot of that leadership on integration. In 1970, he ran for city council as a Republican in a city that was not predominantly African American, and it was not predominantly Republican, but as an African American Republican, he topped the ballot. He got more votes than anyone else, despite coming from a not a politically advantageous point on biography at that time. And a few years later, when there was a vacancy in the mayor that council had to fill, they thought, who better to fill that vacancy than this man who's received the top ballots from our city? And they made Noel Taylor the first African-American mayor in all of Virginia. And when he stood for election for his term as mayor in his own right, he won. And he and a gentleman from Fredericksburg that day were coincidentally elected on the same day, and both became the first African-American men elected mayor of any jurisdiction here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And during his 17 years as mayor, he chaired over 900 council meetings, spearheaded the drive to revitalize downtown Roanoke, several of the benefits that we are still enjoying today started during his time. And something that in Roanoke that's talked about by every mayor since is how many times it's been named an All-American City. And it happened in 1979, 1982, and 1987, all under Mayor Noel Taylor's watch. He never lost an election. Most of the time, folks were smart enough not to run against him. But one time, one gentleman did, and was not very close. But Noel Taylor did all of this as an African-American Republican in a city that's not really Republican and not a majority African-American city, but it was because of his quiet leadership that had won him so much respect. And something that I'm sure the senator from Roanoke City and everyone that serves the Roanoke Valley could agree, we are still benefiting from his leadership decades ago in the western part of Virginia, and we all owe a debt to the barefoot boy from Bedford. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is Senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Brief point of personal privilege.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I've been asked by some representatives from the Chesapeake Bay Commission, which I've had the opportunity to serve on for a number of years, to make just an announcement about the ongoing work of the Bay Commission. You'll find in your offices being distributed today the annual report from the Chesapeake Bay Commission. And we had a very successful year last year, and I'm pleased that the Senate has continued the support for cleanup of the Chesapeake Bay as has been represented in our budget. And I would also use this as an opportunity to say to the members that as conference is progressing and we are making some progress, that we are protecting our positions in terms of our commitment to clean up the Bay. But today this has been distributed, and I would also share this past year we were under the leadership of the senior senator from Virginia Beach. And I was going to say a couple things about him, but he's left his desk here, so maybe he's still within earshot. But I would have to share that that when I assumed a leadership position with the Chesapeake Bay Commission, they were concerned from a conservative who had been a strong advocate for the agriculture industry, assuming that role. Let me tell you, they were very concerned when the senior senator from Virginia Beach assumed the role of chairman of the Chesapeake Bay Commission with membership from Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. I would have to say that we had an extremely successful year under the leadership of the senior senator from Virginia Beach. We had one major failure. Last May, we went to Washington to meet with the director of EPA, which we try to coordinate with the feds, and the director, Scott Pruitt, would not meet with us. He did not meet with us, so I considered that a failure. But of course, then he resigned, so we would have been wasting our time anyway. So we didn't Point being, Mr. President, we have made good work. This past year, we focused on agriculture, stormwater. We've already in Virginia maintained our position, actually a leader of the three, and I'm very pleased to report that we're actually leading Maryland in some respects because we've upgraded our wastewater treatment plants. We're now focusing on agriculture and stormwater. Our budget reflects our commitment to that, so I look forward to meeting our goals, which we're on target for right now in 2025. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Do any other senators wish to be recognized? Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain. Senator has the floor.
There will be a very brief Courts of Justice Committee meeting here at my desk to certify the last 5 candidates for judgeships. So at my desk immediately after session.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose, Senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an announcement.
Senator has the floor.
And a reminder. I want to thank those of you who have signed the letter for transparency. And in fact, I think it's still on the floor somewhere. If someone could return that to me before we dismiss today. But I invite each of the senators to sign the letter that would basically allow our subcommittee meetings to be recorded. Thank you.
Thank the Senator. Do any other senators wish to be recognized? Seeing none, the clerk will report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Tuesday, February 19th, the Committee for Courts of Justice will meet immediately upon adjournment at the chair's desk. Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 20th, the Women's Legislative Roundtable will meet 8:30 a.m. Tidewater Room on the 4th floor, SunTrust. The Republican Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 2. The Democratic Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 1.
Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 12 noon tomorrow. And when we do so in memory of Louisa County High School football coach Mark Fisher and also the Honorable Charles Monroe.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow, and that when we adjourn, we do so in the honor and memory of the Honorable Charles Monroe and Louisa County High School football coach Mark Fisher. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.